advertising. God, it's hard to get advertising. Obviously, we have network ads, and we've experimented with AdJug and Google Ads. But if you want real advertising and you set up your own niche business, then you need to sit down in front of people and sell, sell, sell. Now, I am a journalist. I am not used to treating advertisers with anything approaching respect. But instead, I have to now like them. And that's challenging, and I am not a salesman. So we've had to get some people to come in and help us sell. The advantages we have is that we're selling a variety of niches. I picked up a flyer for the News Rewired Nouveau Niche event, and they're absolutely right. If you want to try and sell advertising space as a journalist, make sure you're writing about something really specific, where there's a specific audience that specific advertisers want to sell to. The other challenges involved are our website. It's not a Ferrari, it's a Ford Fiesta, and it's stuck together with gaffer tape. But it does run, it does what we need it to do, it's just not particularly pretty, and sometimes you need to give it a wee push in a cold morning. Hosting, something, it's just a nightmare. I won't even go into detail on it. The one that keeps me awake at night is legal. I am personally responsible for what appears on the website. As a company director, my liability is restricted to £1, but as a publisher, I have unlimited personal liability, so I now don't own anything, because we've carried stories on people like Donald Trump and people with very expensive lawyers. Liability insurance is cripplingly expensive. So again, if you're going to go on your own and create your own venture, you've got to be aware of these things. And the other thing is finding audience. We've done very well. We've found an audience through Facebook. We've found an audience through Twitter, through our PR activity. But you begin to realize there are audiences you can't reach without spending money on traditional marketing, which is where we are at the moment. We've kind of reached a certain level. We're doing very well. We hit the front page of Dig every now and then, and that brings a huge spike of traffic, and we hang on to some of them. But from being something that originally was conceived as a pure online play and then became something that will be an online play with a print publication, but we won't have to spend money on traditional marketing, we're now looking at having to spend money on traditional marketing. Because everything we do is bootstrapped, that's got to come out of advertising revenue. And that kind of stuff's expensive. And that kind of stuff also raises the question of, we're an online newspaper, where do we advertise? Can we advertise in other newspapers? They might be desperate, but they're not so desperate they're going to take money from their competitors. So these are the kind of challenges that face me and anyone else who's setting up their own niche journalism project. In terms of ideas for the future, unlike cash, we've got them falling out the cupboards. We want to do multimedia, photo galleries. We want to do more social media. Actually, we have already hired more writers. We had such success in the first 3 months that we went from a core team of 10 to a core team of 13. We're looking at mobile and iPad edition, and unlike the website, which will always be free, we'll be looking at something people pay for. And one day we will do a print publication. It will probably be quarterly. It'll be a supplementary purchase. It'll be something that'll be lush, that people will want to buy, that'll be attractive, and will be a mix of the best of what's been on the site, tailored content around specific events, and user involvement, because the best way to get people to buy a newspaper is to put their name in it. And the key thing we're focusing on is making more money, because our journalists want to make money, I want to make money. Journalism is about making a living for me. You know, it's wonderful, it's a cause, it's a wonderful way of speaking truth to power, but it's an even better way of paying the bills. And I'll finish with something I say to journalism students whenever I'm actually increasingly rarely asked to speak to them now. But I like to stand up in front of a room full of people who spent thousands of pounds on a course and tell them, there's never been a better time to be a journalist. And that's true. There never has been a better time to be a journalist. The information, the audiences we have access to, the tools we have for storytelling are amazing. And there's never been a worse time to get a job as one. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to find out if there are other models. You know, the future for journalism, I suspect, is not going to involve trying to get that big job with that national. For instance, the Sunday Times in Scotland has just effectively canned its entire newsroom. So rather than looking for someone to give you the top job, I believe the future of journalism is going out and making that top job yourself. And I think a key part in the future lies in journalists cooperating, coming together to form their own projects, and cutting out the expensive machinery of newspaper publishers. The problem with newspapers isn't websites. The problem with newspapers is print. That's why when we talk about print, we're talking about something that will be an additional purchase, that we think people actively want to buy, that'll have a long shelf life, that maybe we'll get all the subscriptions in before we start the print run. The problem in newspapers is print. It's not online. Online is the future. Print is part of the future too, but you've got to be clever about how you do it. If I'm busking next year, I'll eat all those words, but I'm hoping I won't be. Thank you very much. Please visit the site. If you know anyone who's Scottish or sounds Scottish or Granny has been to Scotland, tell them about the site. And thank you very much indeed. Yes?
You said that your journalists earn money by getting a share of the revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, without giving the salaries of your journalists, what sort of money are we talking about? What are your journalists earning at the moment?
We have just sent out, the most recent cheque we sent out was for several £100.
And what time period would that cover? Is that a month?
A bit over a month. I'm not going to give too much away about how much we pay because it's directly related to how much advertising revenue we bring in. But for the first tranche of payment, the company didn't take a share at all, so we just took all the advertising revenue and split it between the journalists. But our journalists, we've explained to them at great length that this is a leap of faith, that this is largely jam tomorrow. There might be bits of muffin now, but the main rewards are going to come further down the line because, we're 3 or 4 months in. There are websites, that specialist websites, that are now very successful. They didn't sell an ad in their first year. Any other questions?
I was interested in what level of content you publish daily and also how you manage the workflow with journalists who essentially are kind of self-managing themselves. That's
a very good question. I mean, my background is in newsrooms from the Mirror to extremely briefly Sunday People to the Scotsman, and I'm used to shouting and screaming at people. And where's my fucking copy? That doesn't work. When someone's working the way they're doing it, I have to phone up and go, how are you doing? How's the children? You been in the garden much? There's that one thing. If you do get a chance to file some copy, at some point in the next couple of days, it comes down to the goodwill of the journalists in question. I mean, they know what we need. And there's a rough agreement. There's no kind of set minimum. Just as there's no set minimum for them being paid, there's no set minimum for what we say. But there's a guideline of about 3 to 4 pieces a week from each journalist. In terms of stories on site, it varies. At the weekend it'll be maybe only 4. During the weekday it'll be 10 to 15. Unsurprisingly, our busy periods are Monday to Friday, and mostly actually Monday to Thursday. So we tend to try and get all the content in then.
What else do the journalists do apart from doing the Caledonian and Mercury, and what are their backgrounds?
Well, most of them have work with papers as diverse as the Scotsman, not Scotsman actually, Herald, Sunday Herald, Daily Mail, Times, Telegraph, and our health writer does an awful lot of work for health journals. So they're all established people who are doing freelance work with other large news organizations. We have to be very diplomatic as well when we talk about what we do. I made the point we don't go head to head with the